Alaska.
So my name is Ken Golden. I'm a professor of mathematics at the University of Utah in Salt Lake City. And we're up here doing field experiments on the sea ice. We're interested in understanding fluid transport and fluid processes in the sea ice and understanding its microstructure. And in particular, we're trying to develop methods to electromagnetically monitor these fluid processes, such as the drainage of melt ponds and nutrient replenishment for algae. And we're also interested in the Antarctic, but we can study those kind of processes here up in the Arctic as well, such as snow ice formation, where the seawater floods the surface and then forms new sea ice. And basically we're taking measurements of the fluid permeability of the ice, where we drill partial holes into the ice, and then we see how fast the water fills in the hole. And then we also extract cores from the sea ice and then stick electrodes in and try to measure its electrical properties, and then ultimately try to correlate that with the fluid permeability properties. And the ultimate goal is to try to improve our understanding of the role of sea ice in the climate system, and to try to improve climate models. So if we come over here, I'll introduce you to my team here. Hey you guys. So this is David Lubers, who's an electrical engineering student at the University of Utah doing graduate work. Hey, David. And this is Kyle Steffen, who's a graduate student in mathematics working with me on sea ice and other problems. And this is Joyce Lynn, who's just finishing up a postdoc with me in mathematics. She's an NSF Vigor postdoc. And over here we have Christian Sampson, who's also working on his PhD with me in mathematics and doing sea ice. And they've all been to the polar regions except Kyle. This is his first time. Joyce has been with me to the Antarctic, and this is now going to the Arctic as well. And David's been with me to the Antarctic and now to the Arctic, and Christian has been to the Arctic. So they've all been around a bit. So the kind of measurements we're doing is, first we do fluid permeability measurements. So we drill a partial core into the sea ice, and then we want to see how fast the water fills back into the hole, because that tells us how permeable the ice is right at the bottom of the hole. And we drill all these different holes. Like near the surface, the ice is very impermeable, it's very cold. But down near the bottom, the ice is maybe around -2 Celsius, and it's much more permeable. And it can vary over 2-3 orders of magnitude from going from the top down to the bottom. And then we also extract cores from the sea ice. We pull them out, and then we lay them out on these platforms here, and we stick electrodes in, and we move down the core and measure the electrical conductivity as we're going from, say, the surface where it's cold all the way down to the bottom. And up near the top where the ice is cold, the electrical conductivity is very low, because the ice is very cold and there's not much fluid salty brine in the ice. However, as you get down towards the bottom, the ice is much warmer, and there's a lot more brine volume fraction is much higher, and so the electrical conductivity then is much higher. And ultimately what we're interested in doing is trying to correlate these two properties, the fluid properties and the electrical properties. Because what we're really interested in is monitoring the fluid properties and the corresponding the porous microstructure of the sea ice, and how that controls various processes that are important to understanding climate. And what we'd like to do is to try to electromagnetically monitor these processes. So basically all morning we've been extracting cores and doing our fluid permeability experiments, and then when we take out those cores, you can see my team over here doing electrical measurements of the cores. And maybe what we can show you next is to actually show you how we do a core, and then we then put what's called a packer, because we're most interested in the vertical flow of water through the ice. So we want to block out the horizontal flow, so we can just basically measure the vertical flow. So we stick these packers in, and then we have various instruments to measure how fast the water's flowing in, such as a pressure sensor that we put into the bottom, and it actually measures the weight of the water on top as it increases. And it's pretty cool actually, because then it measures all this, and it takes all this data, and then we download that to a computer later on. Turn the generator on. Okay, so all right, we've got a good core here. How much is in there? Just a little bit. Okay, beautiful. So let's take this off. So we're gonna this core we're gonna do electrical measurements on. It's a nice continuous core. All right. That is pretty good. That's a beauty. Sometimes it's hard to keep them continuous like that. There's all kinds of layering in the ice, and so sometimes it's very difficult to not break them. They always seem to break at the same places, like when there's a little bit of sediment layer or just certain kind of layering in the different kind of microstructures that you see in the ice. Okay, so now we need an extender bar. Thank you, Joyce. And this is a little wing we designed so that just in case something goes wrong here, or the bit loosens up, the chuck loosens up, or whatever, we don't want to lose this core. So this is designed to catch it before it goes into the ocean. At least that's the plan. Right. All right, so now let's get the rest of it. Right. Okay, so now we need to get the core that's in there. So he's way down in there now, so we're going to use our little lasso method. Sometimes the ice core gets really slippery and it's difficult to get that knot on there, but let's see, I think we got it. Now we want to break the core off, and we got to be careful. We have these special bamboo poles that are just the right thickness so that when you push it down, hopefully we break it right at the bottom, because we don't want to break it up high. We want to get right at the bottom so that we have a nice flat surface at the bottom for our permeability measurements. And then, oh, look at this. We got another beauty. Fantastic. Bottom to the right. And let's go get the temperature and some depth on that. You're off by 3. 147. So that's a 147 centimeter deep hole. And now we're gonna put our vertical packer in. Beautiful. Okay. One 135. All right. Okay, now we'll let that one sit for a while the water level comes up, and we'll be recording all that data. We started out with a much more simpler process in Antarctica several years ago, where we'd simply stick a ruler into the hole and with my watch and actually just literally physically watch the water level rising up and see how fast it's rising and correlate that with the time. But now over the past few years, we've developed much more sophisticated ways of actually measuring this this fluid process as the fluid as it rises up in the hole. And we've also gotten a lot more fancy equipment. We started out with some very simple a very simple resistance meter, where we just stick in these electrodes to measure the electrical current that travels through the ice. And now we have this one of the instruments over there, it's like a $30,000 portable network analyzer that will measure the electromagnetic properties of the cores that we extract over a very wide frequency range from about 200 megahertz up to about 4 gigahertz. And so we're interested in seeing how the electrical properties vary over frequency, because that also tells us a lot about the microstructural properties and the fluid transport in the sea ice. We're kind of unusual in the sense that, you know, I'm a math professor who does, you know, theorems and real mathematics and computations and so on, but we're one of the only groups in the world that's really in a math department, centered in a math department, that's you know, doing the math and trying to model the processes, but also actually going out to the polar regions and really doing measurements. I mean, I think we shipped 756 pounds of experimental equipment up here to do our stuff in these 4 big crates. And so I've been this is my 8th trip up to the Arctic since about the year 2000, and I've been down to the Antarctic 6 times. I started in 1980, my senior year of college actually. It was my first time down to Antarctica. And the big expedition for me was 2007 with the Australians, and that's when we really started doing a lot of these the kind of things you see here. We just started in their most elementary form. And then we've sort of developed these methods over the last several years. And so the equipment you see here now is quite a bit more sophisticated than we started with several years ago. But as I said, it's kind of unique being in a mathematics department and actually going and doing experiments. I mean, we're one of the only ones in the world who actually does anything like that out of a math department. So. And plus, it's a great attraction for students. It's very important for students because, you know, students, especially undergraduates in the sciences and engineering and mathematics, they hear about, oh, there's this trip going to Antarctica or going to the Arctic, and they think, oh, it's in geology or geophysics or something like that. But no, it's in the math department. And so that actually attracts students to mathematics because they see, hey, math is real. You know, we can really use it for something important, like studying climate and sort of the big questions of today, you know. And so it's been very, we've been able to attract a lot of students into mathematics, like a lure, you know, like to, hey, you can study sea ice and climate, maybe even go to Antarctica or go to the Arctic or something like that, like many of the students I have here. I mean, that's part of the reason why they've been involved in this, because they know that if they work with me on these kind of problems, they might get to go to the polar regions and have a very exciting scientific expedition, as well as just exciting to be up here and see see all the cool stuff in Barrow and meet really cool people and have a great time. And it's you know, Barrow's been just an awesome place for us because it's really easy to work out of. The people are awesome. It's really well set up scientifically, all sorts of great lab space and computers and the facilities, and it's been really great to us. And so it's been, you know, felt really lucky to have had a chance to have interacted with the people in Barrow and have such a great laboratory like here to actually go out and work on. You know, it's been very productive, and it's really been one of the major advances that we've made in our science and our mathematics is every time we come up here we discover new things. So I'd really like to take this opportunity to thank the wonderful people at Barrow and all the people at UMIAC who've helped us out so much, and the University of Alaska Fairbanks, as well as the University of Utah, and particularly the NSF for funding our research up here. And again, we want to thank everybody that's been helping us out, and to NOC for doing this video of us. So it's been really a pleasure, and thanks again.